Scammed by Humongous. Quote, none of us chose to be born into this world. None of us chose who we would be. But all of us have the choice to change what we've become. Unquote. The questions we never ask. Watching people travel to four corners to be in four quote-unquote states simultaneously is surreal. What if authority decided the configuration of the quote-unquote states needed to be altered, and the Four Corners region was suddenly somewhere else? Would people travel to that made-up place in order to stand in four quote-unquote states as well? What if authority decided six quote-unquote states would now be touching, or 8 or 10? Would people be fatuous enough, because at this point you'd really be one stupid fucker, to travel to that make-believe place in order to exist in 10 quote-unquote states? And what if authority decided there was no more Four Corners, and Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah no longer converged in one spot? Would folks stop making the trek to this area? If so, why? The land at that point hasn't changed. The only thing that's different is what some authority, one you've never even met, is telling you. Now, don't you feel stupid for believing in concepts as silly as quote-unquote states? Those who've created these non-existent territories have you certain you're actually going someplace that never was. If authority promulgated a point on the planet was the center of this universe, would people be so credulous as to frequent that esoteric spot as well? If authority declared a particular region to be the birthplace of Jesus, would multitudes travel there, even though there isn't a single historical document proving Christ ever existed? Of course. People make the trek to Bethlehem all the time to pay homage to a personage who, by all verifiable fact, never was. If someone told you a house existed at a location and you traveled to that spot, only to find no home, would you believe that domicile existed? Moreover, if somebody attempted to sell you that house after you'd visited the locale and verified there was no residence, would you purchase that non-existent dwelling? You'd be a fool if you did, correct? Then why believe politicians whom you've never met when they inform you quote-unquote states or quote-unquote countries are real? You can easily prove these duplicitous dickheads are scamming you by traveling to those supposed regions and finding no borders separating them from other equally fictitious territories. If the bastards are so blatantly lying, why do you allow them to control your existence? Why do you keep voting for them and placing them in positions of quote-unquote power? You won't buy a non-existent home, but you'll pay quote-unquote taxes, extortion fees to non-existent countries? If you don't see the lunacy in following such a ludicrous course of action, give this book to somebody who isn't mentally and spiritually retarded. At what point do you realize you're being used by authority? How many people have to openly profess their hatred for the IRS before we stop conjuring up the lamest excuses to justify government? Since we've already been nuked by these bastards thousands of times, what exactly will it take for us to eradicate this controlling force that has always been the mortal enemy of humanity? When a person is willing to believe in that which provably is not there, that's a person who's been brainwashed and can no longer think for himself. Such is someone we'd all be wise to avoid, since that human can be manipulated into doing anything, including committing murder. Hence, soldiers, people indoctrinated into killing their own race and paid for doing so. We laud our erroneous and self-appointed quote-unquote superiority over other species on this planet, grateful we're not as barbaric as cannibals. Of course, we overlook the monumental hypocrisy here. As humans, we kill our own constantly. Over 2.5 million murdered in Iraq, the vast majority of them civilians, is proof of such. How many Homo sapiens were obliterated by other Homo sapiens in Korea? Vietnam, or what folks have misnomered World War I and II. People kill other people all the time, and it's not only condoned, it's rewarded. Soldiers receive medals for murdering fellow humans. Quite often, murder isn't even viewed as such. Should military from the fictional territory known as the quote-unquote United States murder military from some other equally fictional quote-unquote country, it's portrayed as heroic. Of course, if a U.S. soldier is killed in combat, it's categorized as just that, murder, and labeled an atrocity in quote-unquote America. Same fucking action, two hypocritical and illogical responses. Furthermore, at least cannibals eat their victims, thereby not wasting food and thus killing for a purpose. Soldiers murder other people all the time and don't consume their casualties, since that would be abhorrent. Somehow slaughtering people and eating them, thereby providing nourishment, is seen as repugnant, but brutally murdering them and wasting the sustenance their dead body could provide is okay. I'm not condoning cannibalism, but what weirdo came up with this obviously irrational code of ethics? Humans killing other humans is never justifiable.